On the distant planet Zentar, the sky was filled with smoke and fear. The Zandari Empire, a powerful and cruel force, was preparing to destroy everything. Their ships were massive, casting shadows over the once bright and peaceful cities of Zentar. The people of Zentar looked up, their hearts heavy with dread. They knew their time was running out. The leaders of Zentar gathered in a small hidden room deep in the heart of their capital city. The walls were made of sturdy metal and flickering lights hung from the ceiling. They sat around a long table, each one looking worried. Commander Raoul was the first to speak. His voice was rough and low. "We cannot hold them off much longer. Our weapons are weak against their ships. They will break through our defenses soon," he said, his eyes dark with concern. A young leader named Elara, who had always been brave, spoke up. "We need to call for help! We cannot fight this battle alone. We must send a message to Earth. They have the technology and strength we need." The other leaders exchanged glances. They all knew that Earth was far away and that not everyone believed in the power of human allies. However, Elara was right. They had no choice. The Zandari Empire would not stop until Zentar was gone. "Do you really think the humans will come to our aid?" asked an older leader, his voice trembling with doubt. "They may ignore our plea. They have their own problems. But what if they don't?" Elara replied, her voice steady. "What if they can help us? We must try!" Finally, after a long discussion, the leaders agreed. They would send a distress signal to Earth. Using their last bit of technology, they began to send a message into the vastness of space. Elara pressed the button, and the signal shot out like a beacon of hope, pleading for help. "Please, hear us," Elara whispered as she watched the light disappear into the darkness. "We are in danger. We need allies. We need you." As the days passed, the Zentar people braced for the worst. The Zandari Empire grew closer. In the streets, families gathered in their homes, holding each other tight. Children cried, asking their parents if they would be safe. The adults struggled to find answers, trying to comfort their children while feeling scared themselves. One evening, the sound of engines roared overhead. The Zandari ships were hovering above the city, their guns pointed down like snakes ready to strike. Commander Raoul ordered the people to take cover. The Zentar military, although weak, prepared to defend their home. They stood ready, but they knew their chances were slim. As the first blasts of energy lit up the night sky, panic swept through the streets. Buildings crumbled and chaos erupted. The Zentar fighters fired their weapons, but the enemy's shields absorbed the shots easily. It felt hopeless. The people screamed and ran, desperate to escape the destruction. In the midst of the chaos, Elara refused to give up. She ran through the streets, encouraging others to fight back. "We will not let them take our home. We will stand strong," she shouted, her voice rising above the noise. Some people joined her, finding courage in her words, but many remained scared and uncertain. Just when all hope seemed lost, a strange thing happened. In the distance, a bright light appeared in the sky. The people of Zentar stopped and looked up. It was a shooting star, but it was different. It was big and moving fast, unlike anything they had seen before. Was it a sign? Was help finally coming? As the bright light grew closer, it became clear. It was a ship! The Zentar people held their breath, hoping it was a sign of salvation. Would this ship bring their human allies, or was it too late? The ship landed with a thunderous sound, and the door opened. A ramp lowered, and a group of soldiers stepped out. They wore strange armor, shining under the Zentar sun. Commander Raoul stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Who are you?" he called out, unsure if these were friends or foes. The leader of the soldiers stepped forward, a tall man with a determined look. "We are the vanguard," he said confidently. "We heard your call. We have come to help!" Hope surged through the hearts of the Zentar people as they realized they were not alone. Maybe, just maybe, victory was within reach. As the soldiers of the vanguard stepped off their ship, hope filled the air on Zentar. The tall leader, Captain Alex Reyes, scanned the area. He saw destruction everywhere. Buildings lay in ruins, and the people looked frightened. But he also saw determination in their eyes, a fierce will to fight for their home. "Stay close, everyone!" Captain Reyes shouted to his team. He turned to Commander Raoul, who stood before him, a mix of relief and disbelief on his face. "Thank you for coming. We need your help more than ever," Raoul said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The Zandari Empire is relentless. They will not stop until we are destroyed." Captain Reyes nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. We are here to fight alongside you. Tell us what you need. Ilara, the brave young leader, stepped forward. We have been preparing for their next attack, but we lack the weapons and tactics to face them. We need a plan. She looked at Captain Reyes with hope. Can you help us? Absolutely, Reyes replied, glancing at his team. The Vanguard was trained for battle, but this mission was different. They had to work with Zentar's fighters, who knew their land and the enemy's tactics better than anyone. Reyes gathered his team and the Zentar leaders to form a strategy. First, we need to understand our enemy. What do you know about the Zandari? He asked. Commander Ral explained, the Zandari are strong and organized. They use a combination of heavy firepower and swift attacks. Their ships can take a lot of damage, and they have no mercy. They want to crush us completely. Captain Reyes listened closely. He could see the fear in the eyes of the Zentar fighters, but he also saw their courage. We have to change our approach. Instead of facing them head-on, we should use your knowledge of the land to our advantage. We can set traps and ambush them. The leaders nodded, starting to feel a spark of hope. We can use the forests and mountains as cover, Ilara suggested. We know the terrain well. We can lure the Zandari into a trap. Good idea, Reyes said, feeling excitement. Let's divide our forces. Some will distract the enemy while others wait to strike. We'll create confusion. The group worked late into the night, discussing plans and drawing maps. The Zentar fighters taught the Vanguard about their land, and the humans shared their advanced tactics. Slowly, a solid plan began to form. As dawn broke, the Zentar people felt a change in the air. For the first time in weeks, they felt hope instead of fear. They were not alone anymore. With their human allies by their side, they prepared for battle. Meanwhile, the Zandari Empire was not waiting. Their ships hovered menacingly over the city, ready to attack again. Commander Ral and Captain Reyes could see them from a distance. The Zandari were moving closer, confident that victory was at hand. Now is our chance, Reyes said, determination in his voice. We must act quickly. Gather your fighters. Let's show them what we can do. The Zentar fighters, filled with newfound energy, rallied together. They armed themselves with whatever weapons they had, from old rifles to makeshift explosives. The Vanguard soldiers prepared their advanced gear, ready to support their new allies. As they lined up, Reyes gave a stirring speech. Today we fight not just for Zentar, but for all those who stand against tyranny. Together we will show the Zandari that we will not be defeated. We will fight for our homes, our families, and our future. Cheers erupted from both the Zentar and the Vanguard. United, they felt unstoppable. As they moved toward the battlefield, every heart was filled with hope and courage. They were no longer just a group of fighters. They were a team. The first wave of Zandari ships descended, ready to unleash chaos. But this time, Zentar was ready. They used the trees and hills to hide, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the Zandari landed, the sounds of battle filled the air. The Zentar fighters launched their ambush, and the Vanguard followed closely behind. Together, they fought with strength and spirit, proving that even in desperate times, hope can spark the greatest of alliances. The sun rose over Zentar, casting a warm glow on the battlefield. After their first joint fight against the Zandari Empire, both the Zentar fighters and the Vanguard soldiers gathered in a small clearing. They were exhausted but relieved. The battle had gone better than they expected, but they knew they still had a long way to go. Captain Alex Reyes stood at the front, looking at both groups. He could see the Zentar fighters still feeling nervous, unsure about their new allies. He understood that trust must be built, especially after such a fierce battle. We fought well together, but now we need to get to know each other better, he said, his voice steady. Commander Ral stepped forward. Yes, we need to share our skills and learn from each other. Only then can we truly unite against the Zandari. His words were met with nods from the Zentar fighters. Reyes clapped his hands together. Let's start with training. We'll show you some of our techniques, and you can teach us how to use the environment to our advantage. We are all stronger together. The group agreed, and the training began. They split into smaller teams. Zentar fighters taught the Vanguard how to move quietly through the forests and use the terrain for cover. They practiced stealth techniques, learning to blend in with the surroundings. Ilara paired up with one of the Vanguard soldiers, a young woman named Mia. Ilara showed Mia how to navigate the dense underbrush. You need to feel the land, Ilara said, demonstrating how to step lightly on the soft ground. Every sound can be heard, every movement noticed. Mia nodded, impressed. "We have to be silent like shadows," she replied. "I like that." Meanwhile, Reyes and Commander Ral practiced combat techniques. Reyes showed Ral some hand-to-hand moves that could help in close quarters. Ral was quick to learn, adapting the moves to his own fighting style. "You humans fight with such speed!" Ral exclaimed, admiration in his eyes. "It's different from our way, but I can see its value." As the day went on, trust began to grow between the groups. They shared stories of their lives and their battles. The Zentaur fighters spoke of their families and homes, while the Vanguard shared tales of Earth and their own struggles. Laughter echoed through the trees, easing the tension from earlier. However, not all were convinced. Some Zentaur fighters were still hesitant. A young warrior named Doran was skeptical. "Can we really trust them?" he asked Ilara quietly, eyeing the humans with suspicion. "What if they abandon us when the Zandari come again?" Ilara sighed, knowing Doran's fears were valid. "We must give them a chance, Doran. Look how they fought beside us. They risked their lives for our planet. We need allies if we want to survive." Doran crossed his arms but nodded slowly. "I hope you are right." As night fell, they gathered around a fire, sharing a meal. Reyes took a deep breath and spoke to the group. "I know we come from different worlds, but we are united by a common goal. We fight for our homes and our future. Together we can defeat the Zandari." His words stirred something within the Zentaur fighters. Slowly, they began to see the humans not just as allies, but as friends. Doran watched as Mia and Ilara laughed, sharing stories over the fire. He felt a small warmth in his chest. Suddenly, a loud rumble echoed in the distance. The ground shook beneath them. Everyone froze, eyes wide with fear. "What was that?" someone shouted. "It's the Zandari!" Doran yelled, panic creeping into his voice. "They're coming back!" Reyes quickly gathered everyone. "Stay calm! We need to prepare. They won't catch us off guard this time." The Zentaur fighters and Vanguard soldiers moved swiftly, working together to set up defenses. They used the knowledge they had gained from training and quickly transformed the clearing into a strategic position. As they took their places, a sense of unity filled the air. The Zentaur fighters no longer looked at the Vanguard with doubt. Instead, they stood side by side, ready to face the enemy together. Reyes glanced at his team, then at the Zentaur fighters. "This is our moment to show the Zandari that we are strong together. Let's fight for our homes and our families." With their hearts pounding, they prepared for the fight ahead, knowing that trust had been built not just through words, but through action. Together they would stand against the coming storm. The air was thick with tension as the Vanguard soldiers and the Zentaur fighters stood ready. The rumble of the approaching Zandari forces grew louder. Captain Alex Reyes gathered everyone in a tight circle, his voice firm and calm. "This is it. We've trained hard and we are ready. Remember what we've learned together. We fight as one!" Ilara, now more confident, stood beside him. "We know our land, and we can use it to our advantage. We will defend Zentaur with everything we have." The fighters cheered, their spirits lifting as the sounds of battle grew nearer. As the first Zandari ships appeared in the sky, dark and ominous, the team took their positions. Reyes and Ral stationed the Vanguard in the front, while the Zentaur fighters hid among the trees, ready to ambush the enemy. Doran, who had been skeptical before, felt a rush of adrenaline. This was his chance to prove himself. The Zandari ships landed with a heavy thud, and soldiers poured out, armored and ready to fight. They were confident, expecting an easy victory. But as they advanced, they were met with a sudden attack from the hidden Zentaur fighters. Arrows flew through the air, and the Vanguard opened fire with their advanced weapons. The Zandari soldiers were caught off guard, confusion spreading among their ranks. Reyes shouted commands, directing his team to focus on the enemy's leaders. Doran spotted a group of Zandari charging toward him. Fear gripped him for a moment, but he remembered the training. He raised his weapon and fired, hitting one of the enemy soldiers. It felt exhilarating. The doubt he had felt earlier melted away as he fought fiercely alongside his new friends. The battle raged on, and both sides fought hard. The Zentaur fighters used their knowledge of the terrain, launching surprise attacks from the trees. The Vanguard soldiers provided cover fire, their technology giving them an edge. The unity they had built was paying off. But just as victory seemed within reach, a massive Zandari warship descended, blocking out the sun. Its size was intimidating, and fear rippled through the ranks. Reyes knew they had to act quickly. "We need to take that ship down. It's too powerful." Ral nodded, looking at the group. "If we can disable their command center, it might turn the tide of the battle." They quickly formulated a plan. While the Zentaur fighters kept the ground forces distracted, a small team led by Reyes would make their way to the warship. Ilara and Doran volunteered to join him, their eyes burning with determination. As they moved closer to the warship, they encountered heavy resistance. The Zandari soldiers were fierce, but the alliance of Zentaur and Vanguard fought back with a fierce spirit. Reyes led the charge, ducking and weaving through enemy fire. "Stay together!" he shouted as they pushed forward. Doran felt alive in the heat of battle. Every step brought him closer to the warship, and he could feel the power of their alliance behind him. Finally, they reached the warship's entrance. Reyes turned to Ilara and Doran, his voice serious. "This is it. We need to get inside and reach the command center. Stick together and watch each other's backs." They nodded, determination shining in their eyes. As they entered the warship, they found themselves in a dark corridor, the sounds of the battle echoing behind them. They moved cautiously, every shadow a potential threat. Suddenly, a group of Zandari soldiers appeared, guns raised. Reyes acted fast, pushing Doran and Ilara behind him. "Cover me!" he shouted as he charged at the enemy. The fight was intense, but the unity they had built made them stronger. They worked as a team, taking down the enemy soldiers one by one. Doran felt a surge of confidence as he fought beside Ilara, both of them focused on their goal. After what felt like an eternity, they finally reached the command center. Reyes quickly assessed the situation. "We need to disable their communication system. If we do this, they won't be able to call for reinforcements." With quick, decisive actions, they set to work. Doran and Ilara covered Reyes as he hacked into the system. "I'm almost there!" he shouted, his fingers flying over the controls. Just as the last command was entered, an alarm blared. The Zandari were aware of their presence now, and the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. "We have to move!" Ilara urged, panic creeping into her voice. With the command center disabled, the tide of the battle outside began to shift. The Zentaur fighters, seeing the Zandari in disarray, fought with renewed energy. They had turned the tide. As Reyes, Ilara, and Doran raced back to the exit, they could feel the power of their alliance. They were no longer just soldiers from different worlds, they were friends fighting for a common cause. Together, they had created a turning point in the battle, and victory was within their grasp. The first light of dawn broke over Zentaur, casting a golden hue on the battlefield. The air was still and quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos of the previous day. Captain Alex Reyes stood atop a small hill, surveying the aftermath of the battle. The alliance between the Zentaur fighters and the Vanguard soldiers had triumphed against the Zandari Empire, but the cost had been high. Ilara joined him, her face reflecting the fatigue and relief of the victory. "We did it," she said softly, her eyes scanning the horizon. "But at what cost?" Reyes nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "We lost many brave fighters. They gave their lives for this cause." His heart ached for those who had fallen, both Zentaur and Vanguard. The pain of loss was heavy, but the hope of a new beginning filled the air. As the sun rose higher, the survivors began to gather in the clearing. Doran was among them, his face smeared with dirt and sweat. He looked different now, a warrior who had faced fear and come out stronger. "We won, Captain! We really did!" His eyes sparkled with a mixture of joy and disbelief. "Yes, we did," Reyes replied, a smile breaking through his somber expression. "But this victory means we have more work to do. We need to rebuild and ensure that the Zandari cannot return." Ral, the Zentaur commander, approached the group. His face was weary but proud. "Our people will need time to heal. We have lost much, but we have also gained allies. Together, we can strengthen our defenses and prepare for any future threats." Reyes agreed. "We must unite our strengths. The Vanguard can provide technology and training, while the Zentaur can guide us in the ways of this land. Together we are stronger." As the day progressed, they began to clean the battlefield. Together they buried the fallen warriors with honor, each grave marked with a simple stone. Ilara placed a flower on each grave, a symbol of respect and remembrance. "They fought for us, for our freedom. We must not forget their sacrifice," she whispered. As they worked side by side, the bond between the two groups deepened. They shared stories of their fallen friends, laughing and crying together. It was a moment of healing, a moment of unity. Later that evening, Reyes called a meeting. The survivors gathered around a large fire, the flames flickering and casting shadows on their faces. Reyes stood up, feeling a surge of emotion. Today, we honor those we lost, but we also celebrate our victory and the new friendships we have formed. The group nodded, their expressions serious but hopeful. Reyes continued, "We face a new dawn. Together, we can protect Zentar and our home planet, Earth. We will build a future where we can thrive, free from the threat of the Zandari." The fire crackled as they shared their hopes and dreams for the future. Doran stood up, his voice clear. "I never thought I would fight alongside humans. But now, I see the strength we have together. I believe we can make Zentar a safe place for all." Mia, the young Vanguard soldier who had trained with Alara, added, "We are not just allies. We are family now. We can learn so much from each other." As the night wore on, they made plans for the future. They discussed how to combine their technology with Zentar's knowledge of the land. They talked about building a new defense system and training programs to prepare for any possible threats. The mood was filled with determination. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Reyes felt a sense of peace wash over him. They had faced the storm together, and now they were ready to face whatever came next. In the days that followed, they worked tirelessly to rebuild. The Zentar fighters showed the Vanguard how to use natural resources for their defense, while the Vanguard shared their advanced technology. Together, they designed a stronghold that combined the best of both worlds. With each passing day, the bond between the two groups grew stronger. They celebrated their victories, big and small, and honored the memories of those they had lost. Zentar became a place of hope and unity. As the sun rose on a new day, Reyes stood at the edge of the stronghold, looking out over the land they had fought to protect. The future was bright, filled with promise. They were no longer just fighters. They were allies and friends, ready to face any challenge together. And with that, a new dawn had truly begun.